It is common knowledge that wealthy individuals have multiple ways of making money and they don't just depend on one source of income. Virtually all rich and successful people have assets that produce money and long-term wealth. But what are these assets that are making people rich right now as we speak? Before we get into the assets, it is important to understand what an asset is. For the purposes of this video, let's use author of the popular book Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki's definition of an asset. An asset is an object, a property, or any possession that puts money in your pocket. On the other hand, a liability takes money out of your pocket. Wealthy people focus on collecting assets and limiting liabilities. This way, they can grow their wealth. Now that we have our definition of an asset, let's talk about the first asset that people use to get rich. Number 1. Stocks. Stocks have made people wealthy for centuries. Did you know that if you bought $220 of Apple stock in 1980, today would be worth over $180,000? Stocks are not as complicated as they might appear. When a person buys a stock, they are buying a small piece of a company, which makes them a small part owner of the company, and in turn, they are entitled to the growth and profitability of the company. For example, if a company worth $10 million issues 1 million shares and you own 50,000 shares, this makes you the owner of 5% of this company. In other words, you own $500,000 worth of this company. Now, there are two main ways people get rich using stocks. If the company you own stocks in increases in value, for example from $10 million to $50 million, then the value of your 5% ownership also increases from $500,000 to $2.5 million. For example, the company Apple in January of 2010 was worth around $192 billion. And 10 years later, by March of 2020, Apple is worth around $1.3 trillion. This means that investors who bought Apple stocks in January of 2010 have made an average of 670% return on their investment over the last 10 years. Another way people make money using stocks is by collecting dividends. Many companies distribute part of their profits to share owners every quarter. Investors that receive dividends receive a quarterly check on top of their investment growth. Investors can either use this passive income from dividends to use and spend as they please, or they can reinvest this cash flow back into buying more stocks, allowing them to compound their earnings even further. Number 2. Bonds. Another investment that people use as part of their get-rich strategy are bonds. If a government or a company needs to raise capital to fund a project, they will issue bonds for investors to buy. A bond is different than a stock. While a stock is a small ownership of the company that entitles you to the gains or losses of a company, a bond is a debt that a company has to investors. This means that if you purchased a bond, you are lending money to the company or a government to be paid with interest at a predetermined date. Bonds are considered safer investments than stocks since they are not ownerships of a company but loans to be paid. So if a company loses market value, the stockholder also loses value, but bondholders do not. And in some instances, they actually gain value since the company still has to pay their debts whether they lose market value or not. Unless the company goes bankrupt, they will have an obligation to pay their debts to bond issuers. Now, since bonds are typically safer investments, they also bring a lower return on investment with an average return of 3% per year. Investors use bonds to diversify their investment portfolio and limit their total risk. Bonds can also be bought in major stock exchanges just like stocks. Number 3. Real estate. Real estate is a tool that has made many people wealthy for years, and for a good reason. As population increases, more and more people need a place to live. This creates many different ways to create wealth using real estate. The first one is by renting out your property to tenants and receive a check every month with no ongoing work needed, making this type of income passive income. The second way people build wealth with real estate is by using debt. Yes, many investors take out debt in form of a mortgage to buy a property. This allows them to buy a property even if they do not have the total amount to buy it, while having their tenants pay down their loan, building up their equity in their property. For example, if you bought this property for $100,000 with a $20,000 down payment, this means that you took a loan of $80,000, let's say for the next 15 years. This means that you have a mortgage payment of $445 per month excluding taxes. taxes. Since tenants are paying you rent, this means that they are also paying for your mortgage. You are making an extra $5,333 per year in equity on top of your monthly cash flow. But we're not done yet. Real estate values tend to grow over time. So if held for a long period of time, a property can be sold at a much higher price than it was bought for. Now, there are many different types of real estate. Residential real estates are properties where people live in. Commercial real estates are properties where people conduct business in, like an office building or a restaurant. There's also land or farm real estate that can be rented out to farming businesses to expand their operations while collecting a rent check. Number 4, REITs. Now, if real estate sounds good, but we don't want to deal with all the management and the logistics of owning real estate, then a REIT can be a good option for investors. This stands for Real Estate Investment Trust, which is a company that owns and operates real estate where investors can buy shares and receive dividends. A REIT is similar to a stock. When an investor buys a REIT, they are buying a share of a company that owns and manages real estate properties. This company collects the cash flow generated from the properties and distributes their earnings to their shareholders as dividends. Real estate investment trusts can also be bought and sold in major public exchanges such as the New York Stock Exchange or the Nasdaq, making it easier to buy and sell. Number 5, businesses. One of the biggest ways people are making money as we speak is through building their own businesses. Now, for most people, starting and scaling a business is not a passive way of earning money. Building and scaling a business takes a lot of work, but if done right, we can systemize this business to be more passive, turning this business into a passive income asset. Number 6, index funds. We talked about stocks earlier and how many people have become wealthy using them, but this type of asset takes it a little further. Just as we can make money with stocks, we can also lose money with stocks, and buying individual stocks can be quite risky. See, no one can really predict what the market will do, and unless you are a master investor like Warren Buffett or Ray Dalio, chances are trying to predict how one specific company will perform is a risky move. This is why index funds are an asset on their own. Index funds are types of mutual funds that match or track a section of the financial market, like the S&P 500, which tracks the 500 biggest companies in the US. This means that if one company loses 20% of their value, your overall investment doesn't. The benefits of an index fund are, number 1, instant diversification. Since you are buying not just one company but a whole sector of the market, your investment is safer than if you put all of your money in one company. And number 2, low operating expenses. Since this type of fund follows a sector of the market, it doesn't require any active management. This means no management fees that eat up your profits. Number 7, patents or trademarks. If you have an invention that you think can be potentially lucrative, you can file for a patent to protect your invention, and companies will have to pay you to use your invention. This could be an idea, a product, or a software. If your invention has marketable value, you can license your patent to companies and make residual income from it. Have you ever heard of this Linky? This simple little invention has made around $3 billion in profits. Same with the Furby. This little patented idea made around $500 million per year at its peak. The Cushbo patent, invented by Scott Stillinger in the 1980s, was sold to Hasbro for $100 million. Now, trademarks are a little different. Trademarks protect other properties such as logos, names, and even phrases. There are many popular catchphrases that are trademarked. For example, this phrase that you can see on the screen was trademarked by Disney and cannot be used commercially by any other company without cutting Disney a check. Number 8, digital products. Digital products are becoming a massive asset for any business or individual. Have you ever noticed how some of the biggest celebrity entrepreneurs, people like Daymond John for example, are getting into the digital information business? This is because digital products are highly profitable assets. This is something that you can create once and profit from it day in and day out in a passive way. Now, there's a variety of different types of digital products. For example, let's say that my friend Tom here is a filmmaker. There are many different digital assets that he can create to add income to his business. For example, if other filmmakers like the way he uses color, he can create a preset for his color grading styles for other filmmakers to use. He can also create music, stock footage, or sounds that he can sell to other creators. As a filmmaker, he can create plugins to make editing easier for other creators. He can also create a training course teaching others his process of producing films. And just like that, Tom now has 6 digital products that can generate him money on top of his filmmaking business even if he's not actively there. Number 9. Copyrights. Copyrights protect intellectual property, such as books, music, or poetry, among others. This is a great asset since these copyrights can also be licensed out for a royalty. One of my favorite examples is J.K. Rowling. She is the author of the popular book series Harry Potter, providing her with royalties every time the book was bought. Then the books were made into movies, providing her with another layer of royalties since her intellectual property was used for the movies. Another layer of royalties come from the merchandise sold based on her characters. Then Universal Studios created the wizarding world of Harry Potter, where the attractions are based on her intellectual property, adding more to her royalties. Reportedly, Rowling earns royalties from ticket sales, merchandise, food sales, and even beverage sales sold within the park since they all use her intellectual property. And more royalties come from her licensing deals to produce the Broadway shows based on her writing of the Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. Number 10. Audiences and social media brands. This is something that is fairly recent. Many people didn't think it was real a few years ago. Then when influencers began making as much money as A-list celebrities, people took notice. And now celebrities are becoming social media influencers. It's not only the high levels of attention that is possible with social media, but the level of relationships that we can build on these platforms is incredible and highly valuable. 10 years ago, you couldn't interact with a business or your favorite celebrity by watching them on TV. Imagine if you were to send a message to your favorite artist and actually get a message back. Now, we live in a world where this is a reality. How much more likely are you to buy their CD or go watch their movies or even buy their products right when they come out? The best thing about social media is that there is no barrier of entry. Anyone can take advantage of these platforms and build great businesses around them. This channel, for example, was grown with a $40 microphone and a computer and nothing more. So anyone with a camera on their phone can begin building an income-generating asset with social media. Okay, so let's recap the 10 assets that people are using right now to get wealthy. Number 1, stocks. Number 2, bonds. Number 3, real estate. Number 4, real estate investment trusts. Number 5, businesses. Number 6, index funds. Number 7, patents and trademarks. Number 8, digital products. Number 9, copyrights. And number 10, a strong social media brand. In the comments below, let me know what are other assets that are missing from this list, or whether you agree or disagree with the list. And if you want to build your brand on YouTube, make sure to apply to join our YouTube Growth Case Study Group. And as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.